This is the lens I wish I had in my 30s because Nikon refused to compromise on the plena. The last time they compromised on a 135mm was over 40 years ago. This time they went all in, and when a lens is this good, I want to go back in time to recapture everything without compromise. But in my day job, I have to compromise. It's how I won the most prestigious award in my field when I was just 35. But last year before I turned 40, my dream died. I bought the plena with my own money. Nikon isn't a sponsor on the channel, but this video is brought to you by Skillshare. Hello, I'm Jack, scientist and college professor by day, street photographer by night, and this is Bokeh Therapy. Nikon over-engineered the plena to exceed and subvert 5 photography expectations, and expectation 5 is size. In my 30s, I only shot with small lenses. I was happy to compromise on image quality if it meant I would actually take the camera and lens with me. So the plena is a big departure from my old photography habits. Compared to Sony and Canon's fast 135mm lenses, it's about the same size and weight at just under a kilogram, but it is still by far the biggest lens in my collection. This is my Wet & Craft 7-liter pilot sling with one divider, and I can fit my daughter's water bottle and the ZF Plus plena facing down without any problems. The weight is really well distributed on the plena. Most of the weight is towards the rear of the lens barrel, which makes the ZF and the small rig grip fine. It's also fine on the Z6 III. I used it on a 20km photo walk at night, as well as a full day trip out with the family, and even though it's heavy, I found it surprisingly manageable. I would recommend a cross-body camera strap to spread the weight out a bit more and to provide an extra point of contact with your body. But when I get these kinds of results, the weight is worth it. For some reason, specifically the black and white images from the plena looked different to anything else I've seen, and a specialized tool without compromise is something I can better appreciate now that I'm 40. At 40, I'm at peace with this harsh truth. You're never as good or as bad as people say you are. Try telling that to me when I was 35, fresh off winning a big national prize, cross-country flights and invited talks every other week. But what's actually left when the buzz dies down? The projects I worked on, axed. The promotion I applied for, denied. And my health, both physical and mental, was in a worse shape it's ever been. The other harsh truth I now know at 40 is that the blame game has no winners. Nobody owes me anything. I never would have considered a lens this serious in my 30s. It's big, expensive, 135mm is not that versatile, but to understand why this lens even exists, we have to go back 40 years. In the 1980s, just like now, everyone wanted small, fun, compact cameras, and Nikon's F and F2 film SLRs were a little too big and heavy. Facing pressure from the market, Nikon used engineering plastics to make the lightweight Nikon EM and E series lenses. But even though this was a commercial success, they slowly made these lenses bigger and heavier, culminating in the E135mm f2.8. It has great optical performance, but it defeated the point of being cheaper and lighter, and the lineup stopped making sense. The E135 was never released in Japan. The EM and its successor cameras were all cancelled because instead of making build quality compromises, they'd rather be investing in innovation. And this is why the plena exists. Expectation 4 that Nikon subverted with the plena was control. With the plena, they held nothing back. 2 custom control rings, one coated in rubber closer to the front of the lens, the other knurled and metallic closer to the lens mount. Different textures and haptics. The front of the lens barrel is made of a plastic composite. This distributes the weight more towards the rear of the lens, which makes it more balanced. There's a nice rubber grip as well on the front of the lens that's not mapped to any control, so you can support it with your offhand while shooting. The rest of the lens barrel is metal. The Nikon S badge, custom plena engraving, 2 customizable function buttons, AF to MF switch. The plena looks beautiful paired with a black ZF. They match the black metallic finish perfectly. Whereas the Z6 III is more of a matte finish, but it still looks great. There's 2 silent stepping motors. They're true to their name. You never hear them working, and the autofocus is great. Not the absolute fastest if you're going from close focus to infinity, but it's fast, accurate, and very reliable. Nikon threw the kitchen sink at the plena, both on the outside and the inside. Another harsh truth I wish I knew in my 30s is how little say I had over my day-to-day. You're defined by what you say no to more than what you say yes to. But figuring out what's worth saying yes to in my 40s, 50s, and 60s requires a lot more reflection. I started writing, journaling, and taking online classes outside my comfort zone, and I'm proud to say this video is sponsored by Skillshare. I use Skillshare to learn video editing basics and more advanced photo post-production in Lightroom and Photoshop. But what I'm most interested in right now is writing and publishing. Robin Walden's class on how to keep a writer's diary changed the way I looked at journaling. It's how I learned to write scripts for these YouTube videos alongside my full-time job. It's all part of Skillshare's largest online learning community for creatives. The classes are led by creative industry experts, including many YouTubers, and the new learning paths organize curated collections. You can even filter by a specific piece of software, say Final Cut Pro 10, so you don't miss any steps. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can get started today. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Expectation 3 that Nikon aim to exceed beyond any photographer's reasonable and unreasonable expectations for the planner is sharpness. In my 30s, I couldn't care less about sharpness, especially on a telephoto prime where it's a double-edged sword. And for portraits, I wanted a softer image out of camera anyway. Give me dreamy rendering over clinical sharpness every day of the week. But the planner changed my mind. I'm not a world expert on sharpness. I have tested a lot of lenses, and this is the sharpest lens I've tried to date. Does it look too sharp? Overly clinical? Well, in my hands, the sharpness actually makes the lens more versatile than I thought. I think it looks so different in monochrome, especially paired with the planner's unparalleled bokeh. More on this later. But also at 135mm and a close focus distance of 0.82 meters means you can fill the entire frame with the subject. And it's still razor sharp at this distance. It's not a macro lens, but it can act as one in a pinch, precisely because of how sharp, how much detail you can extract from the final image. Expectation 2 that Nikon hoped to exceed with the planner was the elimination of aberrations. In my 30s, I was bad at editing, in that I was over-editing and thought optical aberrations could all be fixed in post. But there's no need to do that when you shoot with the planner, which takes full advantage of how big the Z mount is. It's bigger than any other full-frame mirrorless mount, which allows a lens like the planner with its larger rear image circle to take full advantage and shine. There's simply no vignetting. The corners stay bright even when shooting wide open, which I've just never seen on any lens, let alone glass this fast. Coupled with the planner's near flat field curvature and minimal distortion, you can put the subject anywhere in frame and be very pleased with the results. Thankfully, there's little to no chromatic aberration, only the very slightest hint of fringing in the most extreme overexposed highlights. It also handles flaring with grace, there's no veiling or ghosting. You can look at this and say this is a optically perfect lens, but I think even that sells the planner short. Nikon went all in. I have much more to lose at 40 than I did in my 30s, so I've been early morning journaling to figure out what's next. My daughter keeps me company. She's 5, doesn't really know how to read, but listening to her incorrectly sound out difficult words beyond her years has become my daily ritual. This is how I figured out the last harsh truth I wish I knew in my 30s. Nothing is worth it if it compromises family. If you have to go all in on this. While the planner creates images free from aberrations, the results don't look clinical because of how Nikon subverts our thinking in expectation 1. Bokeh. This, as they say, is the main event, the reason for this lens's namesake. Overflowing example after overflowing example, all the way to the edges, no lemons or cat's eyes, perfectly round, spherical bokeh. The 11 rounded aperture blades means the bokeh still looks smooth and round even when stopped down. So hopefully even the fussiest of bokeh fanatics will have their expectations met by this over-engineered, uncompromising lens. Its sharpness, paired with the extreme fall-off and ultra-smooth and spherical bokeh all the way to the edges, looks effortlessly contrasty. The planner already renders images with that magical 3D pop without any more work from me. How much time this lens saves me in post, how uncompromising the results are, is what I appreciate most about it in my 40s, to the point where I'm considering the Plena as my primary travel lens. While manageable, it's definitely still quite big. It's a reminder of what I'm not willing to sacrifice to get what I need. Photography, travel, and family are all pieces of that puzzle. You'll find the next video on my new Nikon travel setup here when it's ready to go. I'm Jack, capturing peace in every moment.